My stepson said I'm not a father, just an ATM. I froze every account, sold their car, and sent their dad a full expense report. His silence was louder than any insult. Don't forget to subscribe and share your experiences below. Let's get started. My name's Michael. I'm 42. I married Laura 8 years ago in a small chapel that smelled like forgotten flowers and old wood polish. She wore blue instead of white, her choice. Said it was more honest. I didn't argue. I never really did with Laura. She came with 2 kids, Josh and Katie. I knew that going in. Everyone told me, "You sure about this? 2 teenagers?" But I was sure. I was in love with her, and I told myself I could learn to love the rest. Their dad, Steve, was a ghost. He'd drift in on birthdays like he was dropping off mail. Never stayed. Always a reason: work, distance, life. Always an excuse to keep his boots clean. When he did show up, it was with off-brand headphones or gift cards to places that didn't even exist in our state. You could see the disappointment in the kids' eyes, but neither of them said a word. They never had to. I saw it. And for a while I thought they saw me too. I didn't try to take his place. I made that clear, at least to myself. I wasn't there to be dad. I just wanted to be solid. Present. The guy who showed up to the band concert even when he had work the next morning. The man who remembered their shoe sizes. Who never forgot a birthday or report card or dentist appointment. I wanted them to have one adult in their lives who didn't flinch when things got hard. And God, did I try. I bought a new SUV with leather seats and extra legroom in the back. Not because I needed it. I would have driven that old Ford until the wheels gave out. But because Laura said it'd be better for the family. I paid for Katie's ballet classes and Josh's baseball gear. For orthodontics and summer camps and after-school clubs that never sent thank you notes. I worked overtime. Took freelance on the weekends. Gave up my Saturdays to repaint their rooms when they decided they hated blue and wanted gray. Then hated gray and wanted it back. I thought if I gave enough, they'd feel it. Not just see it. Feel it. First, it felt like I was right. There were drawings from Katie. Hearts with too many points. Stick figures labeled me and Michael. There were afternoons when Josh would follow me to the garage. Ask what I was doing. Pretend to care about oil changes and brake pads. And Laura? She smiled like she meant it. She kissed me in the kitchen and leaned her head on my shoulder when the kids weren't looking. I believed in those little things. I told myself it was working. That maybe, just maybe, we were building something real. But time has a way of stripping off the paint. Josh got quieter. Not just quiet, cold. He stopped looking at me. His words, when they came, were clipped, transactional. Katie stopped drawing. She stopped saying goodnight. Her door started staying closed, locked more often than not. I'd knock to say dinner was ready and hear nothing in response. Just the faint hum of her computer, the occasional burst of laughter not meant for me. I told myself it was normal. Teenagers drift. They get distant. It's biology. Hormones. Peer pressure. The need to push away from anything stable, especially something like me. A man who walked into their lives mid-sentence trying to act like I belonged in the story. But there's a difference between distance and dismissal. The moment it hit, the exact second it broke, was ordinary. Quiet. Almost boring. I was walking past Katie's door with a basket of towels. Her room was cracked open. Just enough. I wasn't eavesdropping. I swear I wasn't. But I heard her laugh. And then I heard it. He's not a dad. He's just an ATM. There was a pause. A beat. Then more laughter, hers and someone else's. Someone on the other end of the phone. A friend, probably. I didn't know which one. I don't even care now. I stood there for a second too long. Basket in hand, heart in my throat. It was a short sentence. Tiny thing. 5 words. But I felt them like a blade between the ribs. Not because they were new, but because they were true. Or at least they were to her. I didn't walk in. I didn't say her name. I just turned and walked back downstairs. Each step heavier than the last. I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, the basket still in my hands, and stared at the wood grain until it blurred. That was when I realized the full weight of what I had become. Not a man. Not a guardian. Not even a shadow of a father. Just a walking dispenser. Card with a PIN number. A thing. Useful until I wasn't. I started seeing it everywhere after that. Like the sentence had opened my eyes to the rot already spreading. Josh, throwing his towel on the bathroom floor every morning and leaving it there for me to pick up. Katie, asking Laura for money instead of me, because she knew it'd come from my wallet anyway. The way they both talked over me at the dinner table, never to me. I'd ask a question, and they'd turn to Laura to answer it, like I didn't even exist. And Laura? She didn't fight it, didn't correct them. If anything, she made excuses. They're just teens. They don't mean it. They're still adjusting. Still adjusting? After 8 years? She didn't see it. Or maybe she did and chose not to. Chose to keep the peace by pretending the cracks weren't there. She wanted harmony, even if it was built on silence and lies. I don't know what's worse, being invisible or being something they all see clearly and still don't respect. I started to catalog the moments. Little betrayals that, on their own, wouldn't matter. But stacked together, they were a wall. Josh coming home late and not telling me where he'd been. Katie rolling her eyes when I asked her to clean her dishes. Laura texting me to remind me to pick up after them, as if I was the help. Me, the guy who paid for the roof they slept under, the clothes they wore, the phones in their pockets. And always, that phrase echoing in my head. He's just an ATM. I couldn't unhear it. Couldn't unfeel the weight of it every time I pulled out my card to pay for dinner, or filled the gas tank, or opened a bill in their name. They didn't just take me for granted. They resented me for trying. And the cruelest part? I let it happen. I thought love meant enduring. Sacrifice. Showing up no matter what. I thought that patience would buy me respect. That consistency would fill the hole blood couldn't. I believed, stupidly, that being the man who stayed would one day mean more than the man who left. But the truth is, to them, blood was always enough. Steve could vanish for months, then show up with a cheap hoodie and a lazy grin, and they'd smile. They'd post it. They'd call him Dad. Me? I could kill myself working overtime to cover Katie's field trip and Josh's laptop and Laura's car note, and I was just Michael. Just the guy with the wallet. I had built my life on the fantasy that presence mattered more than biology. But biology always wins in the eyes of a child who never asked for a replacement. And now I was drowning in a house I built myself, with hands that blistered, a back that ached, a heart that kept hoping for something that wasn't coming. Not love, not even thanks, just respect, the bare minimum, and I couldn't even get that. It didn't happen all at once. That's what people don't understand. They think the breaking point is a moment. One single, dramatic event where everything cracks open and the truth spills out like blood. But for me, it was slower. A long erosion of dignity. A quiet burial of identity. One unspoken slight at a time. Until one day, I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the man staring back. Just a tired face. Graying temples. Eyes that had stopped hoping. And still I stayed. I stayed because I believed that endurance was strength. That if I just waited long enough, if I just kept showing up, they'd change. That Laura would wake up. That the kids would realize what they had. But there's only so long you can water dead soil before you admit the ground won't grow anything. The day it happened was a Tuesday. Ordinary. Bright outside. Too bright for what was about to die inside me. Josh came in from school and tossed his backpack on the floor. I said hi. Just that. A simple hey kid. He didn't respond. Walked past me like I wasn't even air. Went straight to the kitchen, grabbed a soda, and flopped onto the couch. 10 minutes later, I heard the keys, my keys, clatter onto the counter. Not a gentle placement. A throw. Like trash. I'm taking the car, he said to Laura. Not a question. A statement. I looked up from the table. You have practice tonight? He didn't look at me. No. Then where are you going? Josh rolled his eyes and turned to Laura. Do I have to tell him? Laura looked up from her phone, sighed. That soft, irritated sound she makes when she wants to seem neutral but is choosing a side. It's fine, she said. He just wants to go out for a bit. I paid for that car, I said evenly. Josh snorted. Yeah, well, it's Mom's car. Title's in her name. And just like that, snap. The thread inside me, frayed for years, finally gave out. He didn't shout. He didn't curse. He didn't even look angry. That's what made it worse. He was casual, detached, like I was the mailman, someone who existed only to deliver. I looked at Laura. I waited. Nothing. She just went back to scrolling. And that silence, that complicit, cowardly silence, was the death knell. That was the moment I understood. She would never defend me. Not really. Not when it counted. She loved the life I built, the comfort I provided. But she didn't love me enough to risk conflict with her children. Not even for basic respect. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood up and walked upstairs. That night, after the house went dark, I turned on the lamp in my office. Sat at the desk I'd built from reclaimed pine. Funny how something made from dead wood can last longer than the people who sleep under its roof. I opened my laptop. First the bank app. Then the cards. Josh's fuel allowance canceled. Katie's weekly transfer gone. Netflix, Hulu, Spotify, all on my account, all closed. I moved like a man packing a bag for war. No hesitation. No second thoughts. I had been generous to a fault. Now I would be precise. Every subscription, every monthly drip of my labor into their ungrateful hands. Shut down. Then I opened the family budget spreadsheet. The one I'd been updating religiously for years. Line by line, dollar by dollar, like a priest maintaining scripture. I went back 5 years. Tracked every major expense. Josh's first phone, $300. Katie's braces, $4,200. Spring break in Florida, $3,750. The new washer they broke, $900. College savings, holiday gifts, groceries, gas, streaming services, dental checkups, birthday parties, vet bills for a dog I didn't want but ended up walking every morning. The list went on. The numbers climbed. I printed it all. 43 pages. Double-sided. Came out warm from the printer, smelling like ink and truth. I put it all in a manila envelope. Wrote one name on the front in thick black Sharpie. Steve. Their biological father. The man whose blood was apparently enough to excuse his absence, his failures, his uselessness. The man who got the title without doing the work. I drove across town the next day. His house was smaller than ours. Paint peeling. A dent in the garage door. I stood on the porch for a full minute before knocking. He answered in sweats and a wrinkled tee, blinking like I'd interrupted something important. A nap? A game? His worthless life. "Hey," he said, fake smile already forming. "Michael, right? What's up?" I handed him the envelope. "What's this?" "Your bill," I said. He frowned, opened it, flipped through the first few pages. His eyebrows went up, then down. "This is everything," I said. "Every cent I've spent on your kids since you left. Your share. All of it. From now on, it's your turn." He didn't say a word. Didn't argue. Didn't offer to split the cost. He just stood there, dumb as stone, while I walked back to my truck and drove away. By the time I got home, I'd already turned off Josh's credit line. He tried to get gas that afternoon. Card declined. Tried again. Same result. I watched from the window as he stormed inside, holding his phone like it was a broken toy. "Something's wrong with the card." I shrugged. "Not mine." Katie found out the next day. She tried to buy shoes online. Nothing went through. She texted me, "My card's not working. What happened?" I didn't reply. Instead, I left the printed statements in a folder on the kitchen table. Neatly arranged. Labeled. "The things I paid for while you weren't looking." Josh opened it first. I watched his face tighten with each page. Katie hovered behind him, reading over his shoulder. Laura came in and looked at me like I'd set the house on fire. "What is this?" I didn't blink. "Receipts." She picked up a page. Her mouth moved as she read the numbers. Then she looked at me like she didn't know who I was. "You're being spiteful." "No," I said. "I'm being accurate." Later that night, Josh cornered me. "You didn't have to do this," he said. "I didn't have to do any of it," I said. He didn't respond, because he knew I was right. You don't get to insult the man who feeds you and then ask for dessert. The calls started the next day. From Steve, from Laura, even from Katie, who hadn't texted me in weeks. They all had different tones. Laura pleaded. Steve mumbled something about needing time. Katie tried to joke. I didn't mean it like that, she wrote. It was just something I said. I didn't answer. I didn't owe them that anymore. They needed to know what it feels like when the ATM shuts down. When the man they ignored stops showing up. When love is no longer a transaction they can swipe with zero balance. I went to bed early that night. Slept better than I had in months. It was quiet. They still lived in the house, but they moved differently now. Cautious. Polite. Like they knew something had shifted. Like they were afraid to ask what else I'd stopped doing. And that was the point. They didn't respect me. They didn't love me. But for the first time, they felt my absence. And sometimes, that's the only language people understand. I expected rage. I expected yelling, doors slamming, demands, threats, tears. That's what happens when people lose something they assumed would always be there. But that's not what I got. What I got was fear. First, they didn't believe it. Not really. They thought it was a bluff. Some passive-aggressive tantrum I'd snap out of once the silence got heavy enough. Josh avoided eye contact. Katie hovered in doorways, watching me like I was a stranger moving through his own house. Laura kept trying to speak softly, like she was reasoning with a child. Michael, she whispered that first night, as we lay in bed, you can't just cut them off. That's not how family works. I didn't look at her. Then tell me how it works. Because for the past 8 years, I've been funding a system that runs entirely on my exhaustion. And no one's even said thank you. She sat up, offended. That's not true. Name one time they defended me. One time you did. One time I wasn't the punchline in my own home. She didn't have an answer. Because the truth doesn't need defending, only denying. The next day, Katie broke the silence. She knocked on my office door. Not barged in. Knocked. That alone told me something had shifted. I opened it to find her standing there, hands behind her back, eyes low. Her voice was small. I didn't mean what I said. On the phone. I was joking. Were you? I asked. She nodded. It was stupid. I was trying to sound cool. I didn't think you heard. I stepped aside. Let her in. She didn't sit. Just stood near the desk like it was a courtroom. You think jokes don't reveal what we believe? Her lip trembled. I don't think you're an ATM. I said nothing. But, I don't know. I guess I didn't know how to talk to you. Steve's different. You're always so. What? She hesitated. Distant. Like you're doing everything right, but you don't want to be here. That hit harder than I expected. Not because it was true, but because that's what they saw. A man working himself raw, breaking his back to keep everything stitched together. And all they noticed was the space I left between my pain and their comfort. I nodded once. You don't have to like me, but you do have to respect me. And if you can't, then you don't get to live on my dime. She didn't cry. She just left. Quiet. Heavy. Josh wasn't so gentle. 2 days later, he came home from school, slammed the front door, and threw his backpack down like it had betrayed him. You had no right to call Steve, he said. I was in the kitchen. Didn't even flinch. Didn't I? He stepped closer. You embarrassed him. No. I handed him the bill. You embarrassed him when you made me pay it all instead. You think money fixes everything? He spat. No, I said. But the absence of it sure reveals a lot. His jaw clenched. You're ruining everything. No, Josh. You ruined it the second you decided that blood was more important than loyalty. Laura walked in right then. Heard every word. She looked at me like I'd kicked a dog. But I didn't apologize. Because I wasn't sorry. That night, I drove to Steve's house again. I didn't knock. I just left another envelope on his doorstep. This one thicker than the last. Not money. Not threats. Photos. Notes. Copies of every email from schools, doctors, sports programs. Every reminder of the father he wasn't. Proof. I wanted him to see it, to feel the weight of everything he had ignored. I wanted him to look his kids in the eye and know what he hadn't done. I didn't expect a thank you. I just wanted truth to sting. He called the next day. Didn't say hello. Didn't ask how I was. You made your point, he said. Did I? You think you're better than me? No, I said. I am better than you. He hung up. And that silence? That was a win. The fallout came fast after that. Tuition deadlines missed. Bills stacking up. Katie's phone stopped working. Josh couldn't buy gas. The comforts were crumbling. The illusion of stability gone. And that's when Laura finally cracked. It was a Tuesday again. Always a Tuesday. She cornered me in the living room, her voice shaking. You've made your point, she said. Now fix it. I looked up from the couch. Calm. Flat. What exactly do you want me to fix? They're struggling. Josh is falling behind. Katie's anxious all the time. You're turning the house into a war zone. I didn't turn it into anything. I just stopped paying the toll for a bridge no one wanted to cross. She sat down hard, put her head in her hands. They're kids. No, I said. They were kids. Now they're people. Old enough to know cruelty. Old enough to weaponize silence. Old enough to make me feel like a stranger in my own home. They didn't mean it. Neither did you. And yet, here we are. That shut her up. For a while. But guilt has a way of creeping back. A few nights later, Josh knocked on my door. Didn't yell. Didn't demand. Just asked quietly, "Can you help me figure out my student loan stuff?" I looked at him. Really looked. He wasn't angry anymore. He was scared. I nodded. Let him sit. Let him watch as I explained interest rates, debt structures, timelines. He didn't thank me, but he didn't roll his eyes either. That was progress. Katie came next, asking for a ride, then help with a paper, then finally just company. She sat with me one evening, both of us watching an old Western on cable, not saying much. And when she got up to leave, she said it. Thanks for not leaving. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. Laura, she changed too. Slowly. She started asking if I was okay. Started holding my hand again. Started staying silent with me instead of around me. One night, she said the words I'd been waiting to hear for years. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you. I didn't say it was okay. Because it wasn't. But I let her say it. Because she needed to. Steve never called again. He didn't pay a cent. He didn't try. But his absence no longer felt like my burden to carry. Felt like their lesson to learn. And maybe, just maybe, they were learning. Not because I yelled. Not because I begged. But because I walked away. Because I showed them what silence looks like when it's chosen. Because I let the house fall quiet. And let the echo of their own words haunt the space they thought I'd always fill. You're not our dad. You have no rights. Fine. Then I have no obligations either. And that was the beginning of something honest. The silence didn't feel like peace. Not at first. Felt like aftermath. Like smoke after a fire. Like the air right after thunder. Still, heavy, full of something unspoken. The house was quiet, yes, but it wasn't calm. It was uncertain. Everyone walked slower, spoke softer, as if volume itself might tip things over again. Josh stopped slamming doors. Katie started clearing her dishes. Laura cooked dinner more often and asked if I wanted seconds. None of it felt genuine. Not yet. Felt like survival. Like a ship listing hard to one side, the crew scrambling to adjust before it capsized completely. But I let them. I didn't interrupt their attempts at normalcy. Didn't reward them either. I just observed, detached, cautious, like someone watching wildlife through glass. Curious if what I saw would last once they thought I wasn't looking. There was a moment about a week after I cut them off that made something in me shift. I came home late, had stayed at the shop to help a buddy close up, and when I walked in, the kitchen was dark. Everyone asleep, I assumed. But on the table there was a plate wrapped in foil. A note on top, scribbled in Katie's handwriting. Leftovers for you. Thought you might be hungry. It's Kay. I stood there, reading it over and over, as if those few words might dissolve if I blinked. It wasn't an apology, but it was the first unsolicited act of care I'd received from her in years. I didn't eat the food. I wasn't hungry, but I kept the note. Things didn't go back to the way they were. They couldn't. Too much had broken. And the truth is, I didn't want the old life back. Not if it meant being invisible again. So I didn't undo anything. The cards stayed frozen. The tuition payments stayed stopped. The allowances, the rides, the handouts, all gone. I didn't reinstate a single cent. And I made sure they knew that wasn't punishment. It was clarity. Josh applied for student loans. He got denied the first time. Approved the second. Laura helped him find a job at a nearby hardware store. I didn't interfere. Didn't offer help. Just watched as he learned what it meant to budget his hours, to feel the sting of taxes on a minimum wage paycheck. Katie started tutoring kids at her school. $10 an hour, cash. Came home tired, sometimes irritable, always hungry. She made her own lunch for the first time since she was 10. Used her own money to buy groceries. They hated it. At first, they complained. Whispered behind doors. Thought I couldn't hear. But then something strange happened. They stopped whispering. They started talking. To me. Josh asked me how to change the oil in his car. Katie asked how to build credit. Not big conversations. Not heart-to-hearts. Just questions. Practical. Tentative. I answered them all. And that's when I realized something. They didn't hate me. Not really. They just didn't know me. They knew what I did. Not who I was. They saw my labor, not my limits. They consumed what I offered but never questioned what it cost. Because I never made them. Because I was too busy trying to buy a place at a table they'd already decided wasn't mine. And that's on me. I built my love like a foundation. Hidden, silent, holding everything up. I thought if I didn't ask for anything, they'd eventually give me everything. I thought restraint was virtue. But all it did was teach them that I didn't need to be seen. That I would always show up. That I would always pay. Even when they looked right through me. So when I finally stopped, they didn't know what to do. Laura broke before they did. It was a Friday. Late. We were lying in bed, backs to each other, like we had so many nights before. But this time, her voice came through the dark. Small, tired. Are we still a family? It wasn't a demand. Not even a plea. Just a question. Honest. Raw. I turned to face the ceiling. Depends what you mean by family. She didn't answer. Not for a while. Then, I miss when we were okay. So do I. But were we ever really? I didn't have an answer for that. Still don't. She rolled over, reached for my hand. I let her take it. We lay there like that until sleep took us. Nothing fixed. Nothing forgiven. Just quiet acknowledgement of the mess we'd both let fester. The next morning, Josh cleaned the garage without being asked. Katie washed the dog. Laura made breakfast. Set 4 plates. No one said anything about it. And for the first time in months, maybe years, we ate like people who shared something more than space. Not laughter. Not stories. But time. And that was enough. 1 week later, I got a call from Steve. I didn't answer it. He left a voicemail. Said he wasn't going to send money. Said he had his own life. Said he hoped we figured it out. I deleted the message. I told no one. Because that was the final nail. The last excuse removed. The ghost fully revealed as hollow. The kid's biological father had officially abdicated, not with fire, but with indifference. And it was up to me if I wanted to keep carrying their disappointment in him like it was mine. I didn't. I let it go. That weekend, Katie came into my office. Knocked. Waited. Asked if she could sit. She looked nervous, chewing her thumbnail the way she used to when she was 8. Then she said it. I get it now. I didn't speak. Let her explain. You were always there. Even when you didn't have to be. Even when we weren't nice. You just stayed. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry I called you an ATM. I nodded. Slowly. I didn't mean it. I mean, I did, but I didn't understand. I thought that's what dads did. Just paid for stuff. I didn't get that you chose to. She was crying now. quiet tears, no drama, just grief and clarity. And I realized this was what I had been waiting for. Not obedience, not loyalty, but recognition. She stood to leave, wiped her eyes, then paused at the door. I still don't know what to call you. I shrugged. Michael's fine. She smiled, just a little. Okay, Michael. That night, Laura kissed me before bed. Held it longer than usual. Josh nodded at me when I passed him in the hallway. And me? I felt lighter. Not fixed. Not whole. But lighter. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't carrying all of it alone. And that's what I've learned. Love without respect is just servitude. Sacrifice without gratitude is quiet self-destruction. Being a stepfather means living in the gap between obligation and rejection. It means building a home you're never fully invited into. It means loving children who compare you to a man who didn't stay, and resenting you for trying. But sometimes it also means holding the line long enough for them to grow up, to see you, to choose you, not out of need, but out of understanding. So now I ask you, was I wrong to cut them off? To force their eyes open? To let them feel what life without me would really be like? Was I cruel? Or was I finally honest? Tell me, would you have stayed any longer? Or would you have done what I did and finally drawn the line?